Hey YouTube, what's up? It's Steven and welcome back. In this video, I want to discuss light-skinned people who don't identify as black. And part of the reason why this comes up is because a previous video that I did, I discussed, biracial, mixed race, multiracial people who don't identify as black. And in the video, I had mentioned that I don't really think light-skinned people tend to do this as much, But a YouTube user by the name of Walter Percy pointed out that, Creoles qualify as, light-skinned people who would be engaging in this thing, in this kind of activity, basically Creoles not claiming blackness, right? He mentioned Creoles from Louisiana, from Haiti, and from Trinidad. In this video, I'll probably more so concentrate on Creoles from Louisiana because I'm just more familiar with that versus Creoles from other countries. I didn't know there were even Creoles in Haiti. I just thought everyone just was Haitian and, dark-skinned Haitians. But, learn something new every day. All right, so let me go into this. All right, let's go into this. So this is, light-skinned, multi-generational mixed people. People who have parents who are not like one race or another race. And those people not identifying as black. I think when it comes to Creoles, there's a couple of reasons why that is. One reason is because I think Creoles, like their family taught them and told them to identify as Creole and really emphasize that. So I think that may be a part of the reason. Another reason, perhaps this is the way it is. Creoles and I guess it's not all Creoles to be truthful, but it is some Creoles, right? So I guess the first reason I mentioned, I'll mention it again. Some Creoles don't identify as black because of how they were raised. Their family taught them to identify as such and such. Identify as Creole. And the same could be said about first generational mixed people who identify as mixed, biracial, or multiracial versus black. It was their upbringing. That's a part of the reason why they identify the way that they do. Because, again, the custodial parent, usually the mother, but not always the mother, has a lot of influence over the identity that the child assumes, and that leads into adulthood and through life. Another reason why I think that Creoles identify as Creole versus black is because they're really perhaps proud of their heritage and their culture and feeling like they have something that's a bit more tangible as far as culture is concerned versus, say, black people who may not have as much like quote-unquote like culture, if you will, because black people's culture, African people's culture in the United States was stolen from them. But Creoles may feel like, well, we have a culture, so let's, identify with this culture, this ethnic group, and uplift it, because we are proud of this, we're proud of our heritage and our culture and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So, that is a reason. Another reason, and I think this is a lot of people believe this is the reason why a lot of Creoles don't identify as black, right? And that reason is because a lot of people feel that, Creoles may have a negative opinion about black people, thus not wanting to be associated with them. They identify as Creole instead of black. even though by law, Creoles are supposed to identify as black. I'm not saying I, think this law should be enforced or anything, but I'm just saying that was the law. When the one drop rule went into law, by law they were supposed to identify as black, and I think by law they were treated as black too. And I think a lot of black people have some animosity towards Creole people for looking at them in a negative light, and basically, I guess, drinking the anti-black Kool-Aid, if you will. A lot of people may feel like Creoles are, pretentious, snobby, bougie, sedity, uppity, even though, that is a stereotype. And that's not just for Creole people. It's kind of like for all light-skinned people. Like a lot of times, light-skinned people are kind of like stereotyped as being, again, pretentious, snobbish, snobs, uppity, sedity, bougie. For some reason, I guess, stereotypes do have a bit of truth in them, at least. They come from somewhere, but again, not everyone fits into the stereotype, of course. We know that. So my personal opinion on this, overall, I feel that Creoles, like anybody else on the face of this earth, has the right to identify, as the way they choose to identify, right? However, I think that Creoles probably have a better chance of identifying as Creole than biracials have a better chance at identifying as biracial. Just because I think Creole is more tangible, more noticeable. There is a culture there, right? So I think Creoles would fare better. Me personally, I don't really take any offense to it. Again, I guess that's more black for me, more African for me, right? And as well, I do really feel like we don't need to be forcing blackness and Africanness on people, because blackness and Africanness is just too beautiful, too regal, too majestic, too awe-inspiring, too magnificent, too breathtaking, awesome, etc. Right? To force on somebody, that makes us kind of look bad, right? Because you don't see other groups of people really trying to force people to identify. Not as much, especially you won't see white people forcing someone to identify as white. You won't see that. It's like, hey, if you don't want to be white, it's just like, hey, more white privilege for me, right? And that's how I sort of feel about this situation, both with Creoles and, biracial, mixed race, multiracial people. Okay, I respect your decision to identify as you wish, identify as you choose. I don't have any animosity, any shade towards the way that, people identify themselves. None from me. Again, when this comes up, I just want to, put it out there, like, just if you do identify as non-black, just don't play the fence, right? Don't try to don't try to claim a black identity when it's convenient, and then when it's not convenient to be black, you're nowhere to be found. Like, if you black, then you need to be black, full stop. And the same thing on the other way around. If you identify as Creole, or biracial, mixed race, multiracial, etc., you need to be that, full stop. You can't just pivot back and forth when it's convenient. And I think that's part of the reason why, like, black people do have animosity towards mixed race, multiracial people, not so much light-skinned people. And I do think that light-skinned people who are not a part of the Creole culture are different from light-skinned people who are a part of the Creole culture. I do think there is a distinction between that, but I do think also that Creoles qualify as multi-generational mixed black people, thus light-skinned, not mixed, or rather not biracial. So I think they would qualify. They qualify as light-skinned folks. So because of that, I'm making this video and addressing this situation because I want to be fair. I don't want to just seem like I'm just going after the biracial, mixed race, multiracial folks. It's like, hey, if there's an issue over here, we need to deal with it. If it's an issue over there, we need to deal with it. And right now we got an issue over here with some light-skinned folks, Creole, identifying as Creole. And I guess it's not really an issue per se, but it's just something that probably deserves a conversation, perhaps. To go a little bit into my own familial history and familial heritage. My mom, my mom's mom, my grandmother on my mom's side, actually comes from a Creole culture. She had, the skin tone, the hair texture, the French last name. But as far as I know, I think she did identify as black. I don't ever hear, because my mom identifies as black. Like my mom is brown skin though. That's the thing too. Like my mom's brown skin, while her mom is like light skin. But I don't think I ever heard of her saying that my mom never identified as anything other than black. And I don't think her mom identified as anything other than black, although she probably just acknowledged that, she came from the Creole culture, but just identified as black, right? Which, again, I don't think that's really much of an issue as long as you, again, you black, but, you just from a different neck of the woods than some other black folks, right? Right? Not too much of a big deal. So, yeah, I think, for me, I didn't really even know that my grandmother was a part of that culture until, I was an adult. I never knew that while I was growing up. So that didn't really have much of an effect on me. And even if I did even if I did know about it while growing up, I don't think it would have had much of an effect on the way that I identify myself. I want to be like, oh, I'm part Creole, nah, not really, my racial identity is cumbersome enough as it is, just being, beige, racially ambiguous, and being clocked as, mixed race, biracial, multiracial, other, racially ambiguous, whatever, what have you, is complicated enough. So I don't really need to be adding in some other identities as well, right? And also, I guess another person I could point out is Tina Knowles. Beyonce and Solange's mom. She comes from the Creole culture, I think, too. But I think she identifies as black. I don't think, I don't imagine her being straight up don't refer to me as black. I'm Creole. I think she's smart enough not to do that. She know better. And Beyonce identifies as black too, Although she does mention Creole or whatever on occasion, but Beyonce and especially Solange, she definitely identifies as black, right? So yeah, I guess those are again. Think about the examples, Even still, I'm showing you examples of light-skinned folks who are multi-generational mix who are identifying as black, even within this Creole, culture and situation we got here. You know, and I guess to sum it up, I just feel like light skinned multi generational black folks are more likely to assume and identify as black more so than people who are first generational mixed. I I really think that is um, more often true. Of course, there are exceptions and things like that. Of course, everyone's not the same, um, but I do think that light skinned folks are way more likely to identify as black versus mixed race folks who are likely to identify as black, but it's a lot more variables that go into a mixed race person identifying as black versus light skinned people. Again, like having two parents who identify as black, even if the parent doesn't look black, they identify as black. So that is influence. The custodial parent, having a black custodial parent, again, usually the mom, but not always. That is a strong influence to the child's racial identity and the racial identity that they will assume in adulthood as well, right? And that's, again, I'm not really trying to be like divisive and like point out mixed race folks and make them feel like, feel some type of a way, because I'm not. I'm just, just stating how I kind of see it. But of course we do have mixed race people who identify as black, right? I've mentioned them before, Alicia Keys, Halle Berry, Barack Obama, I think Zoe Kravitz, maybe, Lenny Kravitz, I think, Lisa Bonet, Colin Kaepernick, Jesse Williams, and there's a lot more people that I can name, but those are some mixed race people who identify as black. On the other hand, as I also mentioned, there are some mixed race people who don't identify as black. Vin Diesel, Jennifer Beals. Yeah, I think it is Jennifer Beals. The lady from Flashdance. Okay, Jennifer Beals. Her name is Jennifer Beals from Flashdance. I get like Jessica Biel and Jennifer Biel mixed up sometimes. Their names, I get the names mixed up. But Jennifer Beals from Flashdance, she identifies as mixed, biracial. And who else? Mariah Carey. I think she tends to identify as mixed at this point. Although I have heard her say that she is black, but the way that she says it is not like she really like claiming it like that. It's not like she really feeling like, yeah, I'm black. It's like, yeah, I'm black. It's like, like in the United States, yeah, I'm considered black. It's like that. And I'm like, I personally view Mariah Carey as, I say multi-race, like mixed. I say mixed, mixed biracial. I think she is, black adjacent. If I saw Mariah Carey at the cookout, I wouldn't be like, hey, who's that white chick? I'm like, okay, hey, hey, all right, you got a light, bright, damn near white person here. All right, that's what's up, right? Let's see. The Rock, I'm not sure. I think I've heard him identify as black. Well, I've heard him at least acknowledge his blackness. As far as identifying as it, I'm not sure though. Again, his custodial parent was Samoan, so that may have that's a factor. Like a lot of these, again, the custodial parent in a lot of the cases where the mixed race or multiracial person is identifying as biracial, notice like the parent is usually not black. Again, the custodial parent plays a strong role in that. Who else? I think Maya Rudolph, Mimi Ripperton's daughter. I think she might identify as mixed or biracial too. Again, her custodial parent was a white father, right? Unfortunately, her black mother passed away due to having breast cancer. So she didn't have that influence from her black mother. If she did, she may be more likely to identify as black versus biracial, right? But on the other hand, Tracee Ellis Ross, Diana Ross's daughter, she identifies as black. But, you know, Diana Ross is a black woman. She considers herself a black woman, and she identifies as black. Even though, you know, her daughter is mixed, you know, even though Tracee Ellis Ross is mixed, she identifies as black. Again, the custodial parent, right? You know, the parent who's raising the child. Again, you know, I'm just, you know, I don't mean to sound like a broken record. I'm just trying to emphasize it and, you know, bring it up and let you know why things may be the way that there are. You know, that's a part of the reason why it's like that. You know, but let's think about some light-skinned celebrities though. Beyonce, Chris Brown, Solange Knowles. Who else was a light-skinned celebrity? Again, light skin, not mixed, not multiracial, not biracial, but just light skin, right? T.I., Ludacris, Ice Cube, Ice-T. Who else we can name? You know, I know we got some more light skin celebrities up in here. Shoot, who else? The singer Monica. And I think Lester Holt is light skin. I don't think he's mixed. He kind of looks like he could be mixed, but Lester Holt is I think he's just light skinned though. Don Lemon from CNN. And, you know, the list goes on and on, right? But you notice, like, they all identify as black. You don't really hear about them identifying as anything other than black because, again, they have not even just one black parent, but they have two black parents, or at least two parents who identify as black. Again, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but I'm just trying to emphasize this again. So when it comes to, ultimately, when it comes down to the identity that perhaps a racially ambiguous or mixed person will choose, I think that the parents, especially the custodial parent, plays a strong role in the identity that, you know, the person chooses. But, you know, there were some light-skinned folks who did pass back in the day. You know, that was true. As well as some mixed race, you know, first-generational folks back in the day who passed too. You know, passed as white, if they could. So, while I think it kind of, while both sides do kind of, you know, have a tendency perhaps to identify as non-black, I think that it's just stronger on the first-generational side versus the multi-generational side. I think that is less likely on the multi-generational side versus the first-generational side because, again, as I mentioned, the parents, right? But yeah, let me bring this video to a close. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it. This is a topic that really isn't touched on as much, so I hope you really enjoyed, you know, this topic. And thanks a lot for watching. Adios and goodbye for now.